Welcome to another podcast of the Riffle series. The Riffle podcast series brought to you by 10 Leaves.
It's good to be here.
So today we're doing something a little bit different. We usually look at these big trends, broad market shifts. But today we're zooming in. We're looking at one single document that is, I'm guessing, sitting on the desks of compliance officers all over Abu Dhabi right now.
I think that's a safe bet.
And it looks like, standard regulatory homework, a survey report. But when you actually read it, really dig into it, it feels less like a report card and more like a final warning.
That's a very fair assessment. We're looking at Notice No 15 of 2026, which was just published by the ADGM Financial Services Regulatory Authority.
Right.
And the context here is it's absolutely critical.
Okay, let's timestamp this for everyone listening. Today's January 22nd, 2026.
And the new significantly stricter cyber risk management rules, they come into full force on January 31st.
So we are talking about a window of just, 9 days?
9 days, yeah. So essentially, the regulators put out this sort of State of the Union report right before the big deadline.
It's a snapshot.
It's a snapshot of where the industry is right now, just before the rules get a lot tighter.
Yeah.
And honestly, the picture it's a mix. Some of it is very good, and some is worryingly vague.
I really want to get into that vagueness because that's where all the tension is, I think. But first, the data itself. Usually with these surveys, I just assume a really low response rate.
Yeah, that's the usual pattern.
A few good firms fill it out. Everyone else kind of hides.
Not this time. They sent this to 315 licensed firms back in Q3 2025, and they got an 83% response rate.
83. That is huge.
It's huge. That's 263 firms.
So why so high? Is it just diligence, or is there a bit of fear mixed in?
I think it's a mix of professional diligence and, the realization that the FSRA isn't playing around here. Statistically, 83% isn't really a sample anymore.
It's a census, basically.
Yeah. It's a census. It tells us the industry is paying attention. They know this is a priority. But when you look at the answers, and this is what we're going to dissect, you see a lot of firms that think they're safe.
Right.
But are actually leaving the back door, wide open.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're not just going to list rules. We're going to look at the blind spots the FSRA found. We want to understand the sort of digital immune system of the financial sector in Abu Dhabi.
Where's the armor strong?
And where are the chinks?
And some of those chinks are in places you would least expect.
So let's start at the very top, the boardroom. The report opens with governance. Now, I know governance is the word that usually makes people's eyes glaze over.
It sounds like paperwork.
Exactly. It sounds like paperwork. But reading this, it felt less about forms and more about blame.
It is absolutely about accountability. And it's about this dangerous gap between, say, caring about a problem and actually owning the problem.
The report says almost everyone agrees cyber risk is a core business risk. So the boards get it. They're not in denial.
They get that it's scary. They know it's expensive. But what the survey revealed was this critical flaw, a lack of clearly defined roles. The source uses this very specific, very heavy phrase.
What was it?
Ambiguity and accountability. Ambiguity and accountability. Let's just pause on that for a second. In a well-run firm, how is there ambiguity? Don't they have org charts for this stuff?
Org charts show who reports to whom when things are going well.
Ah, okay.
They don't always show who pulls the trigger when the building is on fire. So imagine it's a Friday night, a ransomware attack hits, systems are locking up.
Clients are calling.
The CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, he knows technically what to do.
Yeah.
But the decision to shut down the entire payment network, that's a huge business decision.
Right. You shut it down, you lose money, you lose data.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So the CISO looks at the CEO. The CEO looks at the risk officer. The risk officer is waiting for legal to weigh in. That hesitation, that's the ambiguity. And in a cyber crisis, every second counts.
Speed is the only currency that matters. The FSRA is pointing out that this ambiguity leads directly to ineffective risk management. It's the corporate bystander effect.
Everyone assumes someone else is handling it.
And nobody is. And it happens because for so long, cyber was just treated as a tech issue, not a strategic one.
So what's the fix? Is it just writing a new job description?
It's deeper than that. The recommendation is that the framework, the whole plan, must be approved by the board. And this is the part that I think is a bit scary for some directors.
What's that?
The board has to explicitly define their risk appetite.
Okay, break that down for us, risk appetite.
It means the board has to sit down and say, on the record, We're willing to accept this much risk in exchange for this much profit.
So they have to choose.
You have to choose. Do we avoid this risk? Do we accept it? Or do we mitigate it? And once they sign off on that,
Yeah.
it changes the whole dynamic. Cyber is no longer just the IT guy's problem.
It's a business strategy problem. So if the board signs off on a strategy that puts speed over security and then a breach happens.
They can't turn around and claim they didn't know. They signed the risk appetite statement. They accepted that risk.
That feels like the big takeaway here. It's removing plausible deniability at the executive level?
Exactly. The FSRA is forcing that conversation to happen before the breach, not during the chaos.
Okay, so the board is focused. Now let's look at what they're actually trying to protect. Which brings us to the second big finding, identification of assets.
Or, as I like to call it, you can't protect what you can't see.
You know, I kept thinking of an analogy while I was reading this part. It's like you buy this amazing security system for your house. You've got sensors, cameras on the front door, but you totally forgot you have a cellar door around back with no lock on it. Or maybe you forgot you even had a cellar.
That is remarkably close to the reality. The survey data pointed to unidentified assets as a major vulnerability.
When we say unidentified assets in 2026, are we talking about a dusty old server in a closet?
Sometimes. Yes. Legacy hardware that should have been shut down years ago. But more often now, it's something called shadow IT.
Shadow IT sounds a bit ominous.
It's almost always well-intentioned. It's, the marketing team using a credit card to sign up for a new AI tool because the official process takes too long.
Or a developer spinning up a cloud server for a test.
And then just forgetting to shut it down.
Yeah.
So now you have these little pockets of hardware and software that your security team doesn't even know exist.
And if they don't know it exists?
They can't patch it. The report is very clear on this. Unpatched vulnerabilities are a favorite target. It is the lowest hanging fruit for criminals.
So the ADGM is expecting a full inventory of everything.
A comprehensive inventory.
Yeah.
But not just a list. They want asset classification.
Meaning you have to know what's on the asset, the value of the data.
Exactly. You need to know if that server is holding the cafeteria menu or if it's holding the client list with passport numbers. You can't build a Fort Knox around everything.
Right, too expensive.
You have to know what's most valuable so you can put your thickest walls around those assets.
But here's the twist, and the report gets into this. For a lot of financial firms, half their assets aren't even in their own building.
They're with vendors. The outsourcing problem.
Yeah.
This is a massive focus in the report, and maybe the hardest part to solve.
And the finding here was a little unsettling. It said risks go way up when cyber expectations aren't formally embedded in the contracts. Why does that happen?
It's often a disconnect. Legal is looking at liability caps, service level agreements.
Uptime, speed.
Right. And the tech team is looking at security protocols. If those two teams don't talk, you fall into the assumption trap. A firm hires some huge global vendor and just assumes, well, their security must be perfect.
Or they assume if they get hacked, of course they'll call us.
And you just cannot assume that. A vendor's lawyers will tell them not to admit anything until they absolutely have to. The report's recommendation is brutally simple.
What is it?
It has to be in the contract. Explicit cyber incident reporting requirements.
So literally a clause that says, if you get breached, you have X hours to tell us.
Precisely. And define security standards. If that isn't written down in ink and your vendor is breached, you're just flying blind. Your customer data could be exposed through a third party and you wouldn't even know.
That's terrifying. You can do everything right internally, but the company you hired to do your payroll leaves the door open.
That's a perfect analogy. Supply chain attacks are the new norm because the banks themselves are getting so much harder to hack directly. The FSRA is basically saying, your contract management is your security management now.
Okay, let's pivot. We've talked about the board, the assets, the vendors. Now we have to talk about the squishiest part of any security system, the people.
The human firewall.
The report moves into protection here. And I always expect this section to be about, fancy AI firewalls or something. But the report goes straight to the humans first.
It has to. The source calls employees the first line of defense against social engineering. You can spend millions on tech, but one click on a clever phishing email, and the bad guys are in.
And the ADGM had some pretty sharp words about how firms are handling training. They called it a compliance exercise.
Yes. And I think we all know what a compliance exercise feels like, don't we?
It's that video you play once a year in the background while you answer emails, just so you can get the little certificate at the end.
Right. Click, click, pass the quiz, and instantly forget everything. That is exactly what the regulator wants to stop. because that kind of training doesn't change behavior.
It just checks a box.
It just covers liability. The recommendation is for regular, comprehensive, and engaging programs.
What does an engaging program even look like?
It means moving beyond just spot the typo. It means training people on response. The report really emphasizes this. Employees need to know exactly what to do when they get suspicious.
So it's not enough to just spot it.
No. If you see something weird and your first instinct is to forward it to your colleague and ask, hey, is this real? You've just spread the potential malware.
It's about building muscle memory, not just knowledge.
Exactly. But on the tech side, looking at the controls, the basics are actually pretty good.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, the basic hygiene, things like strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, anti-malware, that's widely adopted. Most firms have that locked down.
But I'm sensing a but coming.
There is. The more advanced controls, they show lower uptake. Now, the report is fair about this. It says smaller firms might not have the budget, but it does stress two areas in particular, encryption and least privilege.
Okay, let's take encryption first. What's the specific gap there?
It's about consistency. The expectation now is for encryption of sensitive data both at rest, so sitting on a hard drive, and in transit.
Moving across the network.
Moving across the network. And encrypting everything in transit, inside your own network, can be tricky. It can slow things down. It can break older applications.
But the regulator is saying you have to.
They're saying if you don't, you're essentially sending your client's data on a postcard through the mail. Anyone who intercepts it can just read it.
And what about least privilege? That sounds like a management principle.
It's the idea that an employee should only have access to the data and systems they absolutely need to do their job. Nothing more.
So the marketing intern shouldn't have access to the wire transfer system.
Exactly. But it goes further. Even the CEO probably shouldn't have full admin rights to the server backbone. The report recommends strong identity access management because it shrinks the blast radius.
So if one account gets hacked, the damage is contained.
Right. If that intern's account gets hacked, the hacker is stuck in the marketing folder. They don't have the keys to the kingdom. It's common sense, but it can be annoying to implement because everyone wants access to everything just in case.
Convenience versus security.
Always.
So this brings us to the final piece. We've got the rules, we've found the assets, we've trained the people. How do we know if any of it actually works?
Monitoring and testing. This is the reality check.
The report mentions a couple of terms here that sound like they're from a spy movie. Red teaming and penetration testing.
Right. They're related but different. A pen test, or penetration test, is usually hiring ethical hackers to find a specific hole. Can you break into this database? It's very targeted.
And red teaming.
Red teaming is a full-scale simulation. The red team acts like a real adversary. They might try to hack you, sure, but they might also try to call your help desk and trick them into resetting a password.
Or even try to walk into the office.
Or try to walk into the office. They test the entire organization's response, not just the tech.
That sounds intense, and I'm guessing not everyone is doing it.
It is intense. And no, the survey found limited adoption of these advanced testing methodologies. The ADGM is saying that if you're a larger, more complex organization, you should be doing this. You should be stress testing your own defenses.
Because if you're not trying to break in, you can bet someone else is.
Exactly. Which leads right into the final point.
Yeah.
The incident response plan. What do you do when the worst actually happens?
I was looking at the appendix on this, question 14. It really stood out because the answers were all over the place.
Question 14 is kind of the smoking gun of this whole report. It gave firms a sliding scale to rate themselves, from having an approved plan with 247 coverage and regular exercises,
All the way down to
informal process or no process.
informal process. That's a very polite way of saying we will panic and then try to figure it out.
We'll call Bob. He's good with computers. And that just doesn't work when your data is being encrypted in real time.
But the biggest failure wasn't just having no plan, was it? It was having a plan on paper and never testing it.
That is the key insight. So many firms have a nice heavy binder on a shelf somewhere that says emergency plan.
But they've never actually run the drill.
Never. So when the real thing happens, they open the binder and find out the contact numbers are 5 years out of date or the person with the keys is on vacation.
A plan you haven't tested isn't a plan, it's a theory.
That's it, exactly. And the ADGM is recommending regular simulations and post-incident reviews. You have to run the fire drill.
Okay, so let's bring this all together. We're sitting here January 22nd. The deadline is the 31st. What's the big so what here? What does the FSRA really want?
I think if you synthesize all of this, the message is crystal clear. The Financial Services Regulatory Authority is making a statement. Cyber risk is no longer an IT problem. It must be integrated into the operational risk framework.
It's not a side project anymore.
No, it's as central to the business as managing your cash flow or your legal exposure. If you can't manage your cyber risk, you can't really operate as a financial firm in 2026.
And with the new rules hitting on January 31st, the window for just figuring it out is officially closed.
The grace period is over.
You know, it strikes me that whether you're a CEO of a huge bank in the ADGM or just, a person with a laptop running a small startup, the principles are the same. Know what you own, lock it down, and have a plan for when it all goes wrong.
That's the universal truth of this. It's not about being unhackable. That's pretty much impossible. It's about being resilient. Can you take a punch, contain the damage, and stay standing? That's the real test.
I think that's a really powerful way to frame it. Before we wrap up, is there one last thought that really stuck with you from this? Something for people to chew on?
There is, yeah. It goes back to that third-party risk we talked about. I want you to really think about this question. If your own internal security is world-class, you've got the best tech, the best training, the best governance, but your vendor's security is non-existent, do you actually have any security at all?
You're only as strong as your weakest link.
And in today's world, that weak link is very often not even in your own building. It's a sobering thought.
That is a very provocative thought to end on. Go check your contracts, everyone.
Indeed.
Thank you so much for walking us through this deep dive, a complex document, but absolutely essential reading.
My pleasure. It was great to talk it through.
And thank you all for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you on the next one.